G'day. Today on Building Australia, we're going to be looking at building contracts. If you're about to embark on a building project, it's a discussion you're going to have with your builder at some point. So today I thought I'd break down the types of contracts you're likely to use, where you may have cost variations, cost escalations throughout the build, what's the pertinent and relevant information in your contract, and lastly, what to do if it all goes wrong. Thanks for joining us. Let's get started. So there's really only four main types of building contracts. The most common that I see is this guy here, Master Builders New Homes Contract. It's probably the most balanced and representative contract for client and builder, probably also the most widely used. The next one is HIA. Again, pretty balanced contract for client and builder, but not quite as weighty as MBA. HIA has only got about sort of 40 pages. MBA goes out to about, out to about 70 pages. So a little bit more what to do if and when. The other types of contracts you've got are an architect's contract. This is something you're more likely to find in a project where your architect requires a lot of flexibility in the design and the scope. Projects like that are typically going to be $2, $3, $4 million and above. So sort of a different nature altogether than what you might find with these contracts. The last one is a cost plus contract. Also the sort of contract that a builder is going to suggest, maybe even an architect might suggest, if you're going down that path of designing as you build. If your architect wants a lot of scope to change and vary during the project, cost plus is more likely the contract to use. The fallback for that one, I think, is that you don't have nearly as much cost certainty with a cost plus contract. It can just keep blowing out. But if that's what it takes to get what you want, then it may be the right contract for you. So in terms of cost variations, cost escalations in a project, during a project, all these contracts are intended to be fixed price contract, but they all have some scope for changes in the project, which may affect the price. The most common two you're going to see are PC and PS items. PC is a prime cost item, which is going to be supply price only. And it may be, for example, kitchen bench tops. We've got an allowance here for a kitchen bench top of $10,000. We don't know what's available at the time, or the client hasn't made a decision on what type of bench top that might be. So essentially, we just put in an allowance. When the time comes and we get that bit of marble from Italy and it's not $10,000, for example, it's $15,000, that's when you'd be expected to pay that additional cost plus the builder's markup. Alternatively, it can work the other way. You find a bit of locally sourced stone bench top and it's $8,000. Then you've got that $2,000 in credit to spend on something else, or it just comes off your next bill. The PS, provisional sums, is more going to be a labour content. So you need some flexibility in your price to say, well, we don't know how long it's going to take yet. We haven't resolved the design. Here's an estimate for the labour content. Again, if it goes up, you'll be expected to pay that difference. If it comes down, you get that as a credit. So the only other way you can vary the price on a contract is through variations. Now, a builder can request a variation if they see the need to change something for structural reasons, for example, or they find something in the ground that the soil test doesn't uncover. That's probably the most common. The other type of variation is a client requested variation. This, I find, is about 70 to 80% of the variations, and it's simply because during the build, some new information has come to light, or they've found some other fitting or fixture they want to change, and it's going to impact the price. Typically, your insurance and your lenders are going to want to see on top of your contract price the ability to extend beyond 10%. That's sort of the contingency that most insurers and lenders will want to see. So the third point is, what's the pertinent information in a contract? What's relevant to you? Because if I take this one, for example, which is the one I'm most familiar with, this is close to 70 pages of legally binding contract. However, what you need to be aware of is the first 30 to 40 pages is the legal jargon. The remaining 20 pages of this contract is the relevant information about your project. Who, how much, where, what's the timeline, how long is it going to take to build, who's involved, what documents, that sort of project specific information. The other thing that's going to be in there is the payment methods. There's 2 different types of payment schedules. For a standard new build, method A is the most common at 6-stage payments, aligns really well with lenders. However, with most of the custom builds and the custom builders, they're going to prefer method B simply because they can tailor a payment schedule that's going to line up better with the costs throughout the build to try and keep it cost neutral. That way the builder's never having to finance your project and waiting for money. The idea is invoices coming into the builder are matching the payments for the client. So that's why most custom builders are going to prefer method B. The last thing to mention in terms of relevant info is you have in both of these contracts anyway, you have a special conditions page. This is going to be really useful if you have specific needs about the timing of the project, if the client might be, for example, providing material, or there's just something in the nature of the land, the design, the materiality of the project that ought to be mentioned separately in the contract. So part 4, the DIS plan, I like to call this. You know, when you go down the freeway or on a freeway bridge, you see that grey box that says DIS plan on there. That's the first 30 or 40 pages of your contract. It's only opened if something goes wrong. And it then just becomes a guide of, okay, how do you negotiate this dispute with the client or potentially with an architect or maybe even a neighbour? Ideally, the preference is get everyone together, have a roundtable discussion, work out what's missing, where did it go wrong, and how can you come out with a win-win situation? Because the alternative is not straight to court with this contract in your hand. It's VCAT, it's arbitration, and then maybe you may get court representation, all of which takes a ton of time, a ton of money. Far better to keep this as your guide, but sit down and have a discussion where you can, nut it out and come up with a solution that's better for everyone, because going down the court road, no one really wins from that. So there you have it. That's what to expect in a contract. If you've got any more questions about this, feel free to get in touch. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for joining us on Building Australia.